Welcome to Unity of the Valley Spiritual Center. We are part of Unity Worldwide Ministries, and you can find us here locally at 350 North Orchard Avenue in Vacaville, California. If you are viewing our service for the first time or you're returning, welcome home. So glad that you're joining us today. If you click on this tile that you're viewing now on our website at unityvacaville.org, you will be able to do numerous things. Fill out a welcome card, update your information, or find out about all the fantastic programs that Unity of the Valley Spiritual Center has to offer. Unity of the Valley Spiritual Center is a warm, loving, accepting community. Everyone is accepted, no exceptions. Your soul is truly welcome here. Let's begin today's service with a prayer from Reverend Dalia Adams.
Let us pray. Let us join our minds and our hearts, and let us turn within to the power and the presence of God. We honor the power and presence, the infinite wisdom, the infinite love and compassion that is the presence of God within us, guiding us, leading us, allowing us to find our greatest selves, allowing us to be that which we long to be, that which we were meant to be. For all of the ways we are blessed by the presence of God, by each other, we are deeply grateful, and we say thank you. Thank you, God. Amen.
This morning, we are surrounded by beautiful souls. Some of them may be present with us right now, or some of them may be a distance away. Wherever they are, we are going to keep them in heart and mind. We are going to keep in heart and mind everyone that is joining us today in watching this service. And we are going to keep in heart and mind all the beloved people of our community, our state, our nation, and on our planet. And we are going to bless them all as we say together, you are a beautiful child of God, perfect in every way. You are loved unconditionally just the way you are. And on this Sunday morning, when we look into that mirror, we're going to gaze deep into our own eyes and proclaim with joy, I am a beautiful child of God, perfect in every way. I am loved unconditionally just the way I am. And so it is. Other beautiful people that we have in our midst are the people who have chosen the role of prayer chaplain. They have studied and devoted their life now to the service of praying with our community. If you are going through a challenge or a loved one is going through a challenge, please contact unityvv@pacbell.net, and a prayer chaplain will be in contact with you to pray with you. Now it is time for our community announcements. Can you feel the excitement? We are weeks away from coming back together in our facility. Tentatively, we have set the date for July 4th. Our hard-working board of directors is meeting every week to iron out the details of how we all can come back to the facility in a safe manner. Please mark July 4th as that tentative date. If we have all the details ironed out, if we have a sound technician ready to do the sound for us, we will be back together on July 4th. It will be so wonderful to see you all back in our center. Thank you so much for joining us today. Whether you choose to watch our service online or whether you choose to come back to the facility next month, please know that we are all one holy family. And you so bless us with your presence, whether it be watching online or being here in person. We thank you so much for your generous gifts and donations that keeps Unity of the Valley Spiritual Center alive and well. So thank you once again. It is time for us to take a deep breath as we center into our service this morning. Let's state together our statement of faith. Together, there is only one presence and one power in the universe and in our lives, God the good.
Sometimes I run into trouble, but everything always works out for me. Sometimes I have lots of problems, but everything always works out for me. Popped a can of soda and sprayed all over my face.
Ooh.
I've never looked better. Every hair stays right in place.
Ah.
Sometimes I run into trouble, but everything always works out for me. Everything always works out for me. Everything always works out for me. Oh yeah. Sometimes I have lots of issues, but everything always works out for me. Sometimes I need lots of tissues, but everything always works out for me. Went to see my doctor, an illness here did lurk. She gave me a placebo, and man, it really worked.
Oh, that's great.
Sometimes I run into trouble. Everything always works out for me. Everything always works out for me. Everything always works out for me.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes I have lots of trouble, but everything always works out for me.
Everything.
Sometimes I'm bogged down in details, but everything always works out for me.
Hesitant.
Spilled a cup of coffee all over my new white slacks.
Ow!
Just saw the same style on the Macy's rack with the coffee stains and everything. Everything always works out for me. 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 Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
My name is Reverend Dalia Adams, and I am so honored to be here with you today. Here at Unity of the Valley in the year 2021, we have been focusing on transformation. Transformation is the process through which our consciousness unfolds and that we become better and greater oftentimes in a stepwise fashion. Sometimes, for example, St. Paul had an instant transformation that changed his whole life. But the transformation process is a process of letting go of one way of thinking, one way of being, and embracing a greater, more filled with possibilities way of being, a way of being that is led by a greater wisdom, greater understanding, greater love, oftentimes. So, transformation is a very appropriate topic at Unity of the Valley Spiritual Center, because our vision statement is a world powerfully transformed through shared spiritual awakening. And today we are talking about trusting and honoring God in that process of transformation. For several weeks now, we have been looking at abundance and how abundance is our divine birthright. Jesus said that he came that we may have life and we may have it abundantly. And oftentimes, good people, feel like they should not embrace abundance, that they should sacrifice and be poor. But the Fillmores, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, taught that it is error thinking to embrace poverty. Instead, we should open to the abundance that is of God, the abundance that Jesus spoke of when he said, having life abundantly or in abundance. And as we've been looking at abundance and how we can transform our lives to embrace greater abundance, we have been following loosely the writings of Georgiana Tree West. She was a minister and a teacher in the 20th century. And she wrote a book called Prosperity's 10 Commandments, loosely based on the 10 Commandments that Moses received. And so what we've talked about so far is the first commandment, which tells us that we honor God as our source, that there are many channels of God's good. There are many channels of abundance, but the ultimate source is God. Our paychecks are a channel of abundance, but God is the source of our abundance. That is what the teaching of Georgiana Tree West is, as well as many other spiritual teachers who teach us about prosperity and abundance. The first commandment in her book, adapted from the first commandment of Moses, is, you shall look to no other source but God for your supply. And we talked about that, and we talked about God first in this process. The second commandment is, you shall make no mental images of lack. And along with it, the third commandment, you shall not speak the word of lack or limitation. And so then today, we will focus on the fourth and the fifth commandment in Georgiana Tree West's book. And the fourth commandment says, you shall let go and let God. In the commandments that Moses brought to the Israelites, the fourth commandment tells us to honor the Sabbath day. Based on the creation story in which God created heaven and earth, and on the seventh day, the Sabbath day, God rested. And there is a very profound truth in the importance of this rest that we relax into, the rest that renews us, inspires us, fills us with a creative energy. And Georgiana Tree West wrote it as let go and let God, because unless we do that, Our rest can be superficial. Our culture, our society promotes working many hours and accomplishing many, many goals. And sometimes, if we rest too much, we're being lazy. I've heard people over and over criticize themselves for not getting things done fast enough, not spending enough time, or apologizing for taking some time off. And yet, that rest, that time that we step back, and step back in a way that honors the presence of God, a time in which we let go and let God, is central to the creative process. It is central to the process of embracing greater and greater abundance in our lives. I know myself that there are times when I sit down to rest or even lay down to rest, and unless I am conscious of letting go and letting God, sometimes my body may be appearing to rest, but my mind is going over and over, chewing on a problem, looking for solutions, worrying about what might happen. What ifs can fill my mind. And what actually happens is my body is not even resting because there's a tension, there's an adrenaline flow when we constantly mentally rehash an issue or a problem. So, this fourth commandment is talking about completely resting, allowing our minds to rest, allowing our bodies to fully relax, and to rest in a way that acknowledges that our source is God. Ultimately, it doesn't mean we don't make efforts, it doesn't mean we don't set goals, it doesn't mean we don't sometimes work very hard. But acknowledging always that all of these efforts are channeling the creative power of God through us. So that when we rest, we simply let all of it go, trusting that those problems we don't know how to solve yet will have a solution, trusting that that creative power of God is at work. That creative power of God is the creative power of the God presence we can experience within us. For we are not separate from God. There is nowhere that God is not, and so God is ever present throughout our universe, but God is within our own consciousness. So that creative power of God is at work as we rest, so we let go and let God. I remember many years back, there were a series of cartoons, comics, in which God and some person were playing tug of war, and God saying, "But you gave it to me," and the person saying, "But I want it back." And we do that sometimes. We release things into God's keeping, and then something triggers a worry in us, so we want to grab it back. I know myself, I look back in my own life, I went through this most amazing transformation when I first found unity, and I proved these prosperity principles to myself in the context of a prosperity class. And I demonstrated, I manifested a house on the water under the most impossible circumstances. I was in a hopeless financial situation, or at least what felt temporarily hopeless. I got my house, I got a job, and everything started coming together. My hard work was paying off, my bank account was growing, I was doing well, and I forgot. Even though I was immersed in unity and doing many things within the context of my spiritual community, I forgot. I started thinking and feeling that my abundance, my prosperity was entirely dependent on my job, on my private practice as a psychologist, on the paychecks I was getting, on the checks that I was getting from insurance companies. Because I was doing well. I mean, it was looking good. And I was giving myself all of the credit. I forgot that God was source. And in came this very powerful call to ministry. And I had a long list of reasons why I shouldn't and couldn't do it. But one of them was I could not afford to leave everything that I had behind and go to seminary because I would lose everything. I started thinking that I was the source. The small self of me was the source. And I forgot that ultimately, I managed to end up with a house when the whole world was saying it was impossible because God was my source. I forgot that if I came up against challenges going forward, God would still be my source. So I said no. I said no for that reason and for quite a few others. For many years, I said no to that calling. And my fear and what I had held in mind for 7 years was that I would lose everything. And I managed to manifest that. I lost everything. But when I lost everything, I remembered it took that kind of chaos in my life for me to remember that God is my source. To really remember on a gut level. I mean, I remembered the story of God being my source, but when my world came undone, I remembered on a gut level. I remembered on a deep, very deep way that God is my source. And as I embraced that again, everything started turning around. So there is a challenge to letting go and letting God. There is a challenge when we're doing well because we think that it's all on us. And there's a challenge when times get really tough because we think it's all on us. It's God working through us and remembering to let go and let God and to take times of rest, Sabbath moments, Sabbath days, where we live in that consciousness of the presence of God and we release all of those worries and we allow God's abundance to flow in and through us. Georgiana Tree West says, in every demonstration, there must be a resting period while one dwells in the complete reliance on God. Because we forget. So when we have a time set aside for prayer, for meditation, for rest, for contemplation, we can go into that deep rest of knowing that our lives, our abundance is all embraced in the arms of God. So in those moments, we start trusting that even out of the greatest chaos, divine order is born. I used to work for Unity's prayer ministry. The headquarters, Unity headquarters, houses a prayer ministry that has been around for about 100 years. And we were taught how to pray, and we were given affirmations as suggestions to use when appropriate. And one of the affirmations was just this, that even out of the greatest chaos, divine order is born. Because in that chaos, it's easy for us, it's easy for people to become afraid. As human beings, we like it when our lives are predictable, when we feel safe in the rhythms we've created, when we feel that we have enough with the financial resources and other resources that we have, friends and family. And we go along in a familiar routine and it feels safe and it feels good. And it is good. It is absolutely wonderful to live life in that kind of rhythm. But things happen, stuff happens. And it's not as we expected, it's not as we planned. Sometimes it calls us to be our strongest, bravest, most courageous. And it feels chaotic in that moment. Pema Chodron, a Buddhist teacher, wrote a book called When Things Fall Apart. In those moments when it feels like everything is falling apart, it feels like chaos. That order that I was accustomed to isn't there anymore. Out of that, out of that state, comes such a creative potential. We're not likely to make big changes or to have huge growth spurts when everything is predictable and familiar and good. There's no reason to. But when things fall apart, which they do in life sometimes, that's just the nature of this earthly existence. Things change, they fall apart, chaos happens, and in those moments, a new way of being, a new rhythm, a new pattern emerges. And that's that divine order being born, and that new way of being, that new pattern, that new understanding is divinely inspired. It's the divine ideas that we open to that help us move through those chaotic times into a transformation to a greater way of being. I was reflecting on this and I realized that even in the chaos, in those moments of chaos, it's important to remember that God isn't creating the chaos for us, but in that chaos, God is present. And God is our strength as we move through the chaos. God is our inspiration as we move through that chaos. God is our comfort as we move through the chaos. And in some ways, that chaos itself is divine because it's the chaos that invites new creation. That orderly, predictable, comfortable way of being is less likely to invite transformational change. But in that chaos, there's a new way of reorganizing, a new way of thinking, a new set of possibilities that open up. And to me, that's the divine essence in the chaos. So in my mind, I was thinking, well, there's divine order and there's divine chaos. And maybe I'm stretching it, but it made sense to me in that moment. That in that divine presence in the chaos is where all the possibilities arise. So this commandment tells us in the midst of these times that can feel so difficult, or even in the midst of the times that feel so comfortable and predictable, it's always important to step back and let go and let God and allow that creative power that is God to work through us, helping us to grow, to unfold, to transform. Deepak Chopra, in his book, The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, says when energy is freed up, when your internal reference point is spirit, and that tends to be his name for God, you can harness the power of love and use energy creatively. I think he was saying the same thing, but just in a different language, different languaging. And so with that, we move to the fifth commandment, and this is abbreviated. Georgiana Tree West's version of the fifth commandment. Again, she's basing her prosperity commandments on the 10 commandments that Moses received. And so it's, you shall deal honorably with God. The full commandment was, you shall deal honorably with God and with all human instruments through whom God is manifested for you. So the fifth commandment is honor thy father and thy mother, the commandments that Moses gave to the Israelites. So this commandment says, honor God as our spiritual father, mother, and to honor the human instruments of God that have provided for us, that do bless us, that do provide abundance in our lives. She writes about honoring God as the father, the mother of our spiritual life, but to honor our parents, our friends, our support system, our teachers, as the parents of our physical life, that we must do both, and we must see the people that support us as instruments of God, and to honor them in that way, and to be able to receive both what God gives to us directly in spirit and what God gives to us through others in our lives, and to honor that, to value it, to appreciate it, to take time, to take notice, and to be able to say yes as we receive this abundance, to say yes to our lives, to the things that we are called to do, to say yes to the gifts that we are given. Sometimes that's hard for people simply to say yes. Too often in our culture, oh, I couldn't possibly take that. That's too much. You know? Why? In Turkey, I was young and I was a tourist, and I learned very quickly that if I said to someone, I like that, I like your coat, I like the bag you're carrying it, they would immediately give it to you. And as an American, I'd say, oh, no, 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 I can't take that. But in their culture, that was the appropriate thing to do. If someone liked what you had and you said that you liked it, it became yours. And so the whole way that we have of giving and receiving needs to reorient to the knowing that it is all ultimately of God and from God. I was gifted once with an all-expense paid trip to a spiritual retreat in Assisi. And ultimately, because of unity principles, I said yes. And my meditation, my prayer, my guidance was to say yes, but it was so hard to say yes. And it was ultimately something very good, both for me and for the person who gifted me. She was a good friend. She was a unity spiritual teacher, a licensed unity teacher. And we both grew out of the experience. So we deal honorably with God and all of God's representatives, all of God's instruments here on earth. And we honor God and God's instruments by acknowledging, by seeing, by recognizing the blessings, the abundance. We honor God and the instruments of God by being grateful for what we are given. To let go of this, no, 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 it's too much, I don't want this, I can't take that. Or no, 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 I know you're calling, God, you're calling me to be something greater, something more, something better, but I'm not good enough. I can't do that. I won't do that. And I say that from experience because I've done that in my life. And it doesn't work. The calling doesn't go away. The gifts don't stop coming. But we need to acknowledge them ultimately to be from God and to be grateful. Be grateful to God and be grateful to the instruments of God's good. And we honor all of these gifts by giving back. On a spiritual level, we're taught to tithe, to give back to that which feeds us spiritually, whether it's a church, a spiritual center, maybe some inspirational speaker or an author of a book, or a neighbor that inspires you spiritually. We give back and honor the instruments of our good when we take time first to acknowledge, I love coffee and I make a really good pot of coffee every morning. I buy good beans and they're ground and they smell wonderful. It's a thing for me, right? But I try to remember that it's not just this bag of coffee that I'm dealing with, but there were people who grew the coffee beans. There were people who tilled the soil. There were people that picked the coffee beans and then processed them so that they could be shipped to the store where I bought them. And if these beans are from a place like Ethiopia or Kenya or somewhere in South America, there were people who transported those beans. And then people who created stores and people who worked in the stores. And so if I stop and think maybe of the hundreds or even thousands of people who have come together to allow me to enjoy that cup of coffee in the morning, I acknowledge that and I can be grateful. I can be grateful. I can let my heart feel the gratitude for all of them, for each and every one of them. I can be grateful to this earth for providing the soil where these beans can grow. And I can give back. I can give back by when I can, I choose coffee beans that are fair trade so I know that people are compensated for their work and it's fair. And maybe I pay more, which I do. But it's a way of giving back. I also like to choose coffee beans that are grown in the shade. Again, they're more expensive, but that means that there were trees and forest lands that did not have to be cut back. So I give back to the earth because each of these plants that didn't get cut back provides a replenishment of oxygen for our planet. So, there's a million different things we could stop and reflect on and acknowledge both the source as God and the instruments of God that made that possible. And we could just set an intention of each day going through this process with at least one thing, acknowledging, being grateful, giving back. So when we combine a practice of regular, dedicated times for Sabbath moments and rest, and a dedicated practice of honoring God and the instruments of God, we open to Him abundance in a way that is new and it is part of the transformation process. I feel so much more abundant when I do this process with my cup of coffee than when I just mindlessly pick it up, sip, and maybe turn on the TV. So, Joel Osteen, wonderful spiritual teacher, said, keep honoring God with your life, stay in peace, trust God's timing. That's the letting go and letting God. And God will open doors for you that no man can shut. And so it is.
As we enter this time of meditation, I invite you to become still. I invite you to take your favorite meditation posture as we now center within.
I will change your name. You shall no longer be called wounded, outcast, lonely or afraid. I will change your name. Your new name shall be confidence, joyfulness, overcoming one, faithfulness, friend of God, one who seeks my face. I will change your name. You shall no longer be called shall be confidence, joyfulness, overcoming one, faithfulness, friend of God, one who seeks my face.
And so now we move more deeply into our time of meditation. I invite you to sit comfortably. Allow your breath to come easily and effortlessly. Allow your body to relax. Maybe imagine each and every muscle releasing any tension that it may be carrying. Feeling that tension melt away for a little while. And then focusing your attention on the movement of your breath. Noticing how your breath feels when you breathe in and when you breathe out. Noticing how each breath takes you a little deeper within. Taking you deeper into that sacred space within you. that sacred space where you know, you feel, you experience the presence of God. And for a little while, you linger in that sacred space, feeling God's presence. Silently saying to yourself, today, in this moment, I let go and I let God. Silently saying to yourself, in this moment, I choose to honor God and the abundance that is mine through the power and presence of God. I open to my abundance. And I acknowledge God as my source. I quietly say thank you for all the good that is mine, that is coming into my life. Silently, I say thank you. And I set an intention to give back each and every day, to find a way to give back, to honor God as my source, to honor the instruments of God as channels of my good. Today, I trust and I honor the power of God in my life. Holding those affirmations in your heart, allow yourself to gently and easily bring your attention back to this moment, back to this time and place. Take a nice deep breath, feel the ground beneath your feet. And when you're ready, open your eyes. And please join with me in saying, thank you. Thank you, God. Amen.
Ah, there you are. Welcome back. It is that time in our service where we pause and give thanks for our prosperity and our abundance. And so again, we joyfully proclaim God's love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am and have, all that I give and receive. I am grateful.
I just wanna thank you for all you bring to me. I just wanna thank you wanna thank you for all you bring to me. I just wanna thank you. Your love has set me free. I just wanna thank you for all you bring to me. I just wanna thank you. Your love has set me free.
There is a constant flow of abundant good that flows into our lives. And so, isn't it wonderful that we can proclaim with such gladness together? The inexhaustible resource of spirit is equal to every demand. There is no reality in lack. Our abundance is here and now manifest. And so it is. Please join me in the singing of our peace song.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God as creator, family are we. Now we walk with each other in perfect harmony. Now peace begins with me. Yes, this is the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment, live each moment, peace eternally. Now there is peace on earth, and yes, it begins with me.
Let's say the prayer of protection together. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. We are one holy family. We celebrate our oneness and honor our diversity.
As we bring this spiritual experience, this service to a close, let us join together in an affirmation. And I invite you to hold this affirmation in your mind and in your heart throughout the week. So our affirmation is, I acknowledge the presence of God within me, and I choose to trust. Once more, I acknowledge the presence of God within me, and I choose to trust. And so it is.
And as we end the service today, I would like to thank Reverend Dalia Adams for her wonderful message and meditation. I would like to thank the broadcast team for making this broadcast possible. So I wish you a very blessed week. And as always, I would like to start the waving of the hellos. So hi, everybody.
In a happy mood, feeling gratitude. Thank you, thank you.
Gratitude is my name, feeling grateful is my game. Thank you, thank you.
When I lift my head up, stop complaining.
I see everything through gratitude-colored glasses, and we're all in
Hi,
this
everybody.
great big sea of bliss. Thank you,
Thank you,
thank you.
thank you.
Hi. How is everybody? Hi.
Wave.
Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah, Reggie.
I'm in a happy mood, feeling gratitude.
Yes, you are.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Gratitude is my name. Feeling grateful is my game. Thank you.
Thank you.
When I lift my head up and stop complaining,
I feel everything through gratitude-colored glasses, and we're all in this great big sea of bliss.